Hello and welcome back to my channel. This video is the third installment in my 5-part analysis series of Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoevsky. In this section, we are going to talk about the second meeting between Raskolnikov and Porfiry Petrovich. We're a little bit past the middle of the book, and at this point in time, Raskolnikov and Porfiry have already had one meeting, and we know that Porfiry has his suspicions. He tried to catch Raskolnikov in a lie. He asked Raskolnikov if he remembers seeing the painters when he went to visit at the apartment of the pawnbroker, because in Raskolnikov's story, he visited the pawnbroker before she was killed to drop off some goods at the pawnbroker to check out an apartment in the building. But the painters were there the day of the murder, and Raskolnikov manages to sidestep this trap. But Raskolnikov made a commitment to come back. He said that he was going to produce a written note describing the items that he had pawned with the pawnbroker, and he was going to come back to deliver this note to Porfiry. And so he does. And he comes back, and we meet Porfiry again. And this is one of these amazing Dostoevsky chapters, because Porfiry is in a frenzy. He's in an ecstatic state when Raskolnikov comes in. He's painted as being giddy with excitement and energy, and the scene is electric. Of course, Raskolnikov is extremely on edge, and he's extremely concerned about this energy that Porfiry exudes. And what we learn is that Porfiry is so giddy and excited and enthusiastic and happy because he feels that Raskolnikov is caught, that the jig is up, that he finally has the evidence he needs to trap him and to prove that Raskolnikov is guilty. And he has great evidence. The evidence that he has is he has someone waiting in the back room, someone who had come to the police station not long before and testified that Raskolnikov went back to the scene of the crime. It's a workman, someone who was working in the apartment, who saw Raskolnikov show up, and he was walking around the scene in a crime in like a daze, talking about the blood, and being extremely suspicious. And Porfiry is excited to drop this testimony on Raskolnikov, spring it on him, and he believes that Raskolnikov will not be able to handle it, that Raskolnikov will crack under the pressure, and he will finally have the evidence that he needs to solve this case. Raskolnikov walks into the office. It turned out that this time Porfiry Petrovich was alone. He met his guest, apparently with the most cheerful and welcoming look. "Ah, my dear fellow, here you are, in our territory," began Porfiry, extending both hands to him. "Well, have a seat, old boy. But perhaps you don't like to be called dear fellow or old boy. Please don't consider it too familiar. Sit here, sit on the sofa." Raskolnikov sat down without taking his eyes off him. Raskolnikov explains, "I brought you this paper about the watch. Here it is. Is it all right, or shall I recopy it?" "What? A paper? Yes, don't worry, that's fine," said Porfiry Petrovich, as if hurrying to go somewhere, and only after saying this did he take the paper and glance at it. "Yes, it's fine as it is. Nothing more is needed," he confirmed with the same speed, and placed the paper on the table. Then a minute later, already talking about something else, he picked it up from the table and placed it on the bureau. Raskolnikov says, "I believe that yesterday you said you wished to question me officially about my acquaintanceship with the murdered woman?" Skipping ahead a bit. Yes, don't worry, there's no hurry at all, sir," muttered Porfiry Petrovich, pacing back and forth around the table, but seemingly without any objective, as if hastening first to the window, then to the bureau, then back to the table, first avoiding Raskolnikov's suspicious glance, then suddenly stopping in one place and staring directly at him, his small, plump, round figure, like a ball rolling in various directions and bouncing off the walls, seemed very strange indeed. What follows is a few pages of this amazing cat and mouse game. Raskolnikov is very nervous. He's very on edge. He feels that he's suspicious, that Porfiry is suspicious of him, and he feels very wary of Porfiry. He feels like Porfiry sees through him, as if he's sort of, able to, he stands naked in a way before Porfiry. So Raskolnikov is pushing Porfiry to just put his cards on the table. And Porfiry says something very menacing now to Raskolnikov. He says, "You're a law student, aren't you? You're studying the law. You're going to learn about all these police tactics and investigation. Let me give you some advice. Let me teach you something." He says, "If I, for instance, consider someone guilty of committing a crime, why, I ask you, would I want to alarm him prematurely, even if I had definite evidence against him, sir? For example, I'm obliged to arrest one person sooner, but someone else has a different character, sir. So why shouldn't I let him gallivant around town, sir? Haha. No, I can see you don't quite understand, so I'll explain it to you more clearly. For instance, if I were to put him in jail too soon, then I'd be giving him moral support, so to speak." Porfiry says, "You're laughing?" And then we get parenthesis here. Raskolnikov wasn't even tempted to laugh. He sat there, his teeth clenched, without taking his angry gaze from Porfiry Petrovich's eyes. Porfiry continues, "Meanwhile, that's how it is, especially with some subjects, because people are different, sir. Yet there's only one procedure for all of them, sir. Now you'll say, what about the evidence? Well, let's suppose there is evidence, sir. But evidence, old boy, cuts two ways, for the most part, sir. I'm an investigator, and as a result, I confess that I'm an imperfect man. I'd like to present an investigation that is, so to speak, mathematically clear. I'd like to have evidence that is the equivalent of 2 times 2 makes 4. It would be direct and incontrovertible proof. But if you lock someone up before it's time, even if I were convinced that it was him, I might be depriving myself of the means of further exposure. And why? Because I'd be giving him a definite position, so to speak, defining him psychologically and reassuring him. And he'd retreat from me into his shell." Skipping a bit here. "Very amusing cases of this kind sometimes occur, sir. If I leave a particular gentleman all alone, if I don't arrest him and don't disturb him, but if he knows at every hour and every minute, or at least if he suspects that I know everything, all there is to know, and that I'm following him day and night, watching him constantly, and if he feels the weight of my conscious suspicion and fear, well then, he's absolutely certain to lose his head. He himself will come forward of his own accord, sir, and might perhaps do something that, just like 2 times 2 makes 4, will provide, so to speak, mathematical certainty. That would be very nice, sir. Why should I be upset if a person wanders around town unhindered? Let him go wherever he pleases for now. I know that he's my prey, and won't get far away from me. Where could he run to? Haha, abroad? Or what? A Pole would go abroad, but not him. The more so since I'm following him, and have taken precautions. Would he run into the depths of the countryside? But peasants live there, genuine homespun Russian peasants. So our contemporary, a developed person, would sooner prefer prison than life with such strangers as our peasants are. Haha. But this is all nonsense and beside the point. What does it mean to run away? It's a formality. It's not the main thing. This isn't why he doesn't run away from me. It's that he has nowhere to run. He won't run away psychologically. Have you seen a moth near a candle? Well, just like that, he'll circle around me, like a moth around a flame. His freedom will no longer satisfy him. He'll start thinking, become confused, leading himself all around. He'll get tangled up in a net and worry himself to death. Even more than that, he'll present me with some sort of mathematical proof, like 2 times 2, if only I allow him enough time between the acts. And he'll keep circling around me, constantly narrowing the radius of his circle, and then, plop, he'll fly right into my mouth. I'll swallow him up, sir, and that will be very nice, sir. Ha 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 ha. You don't believe me? In The Brothers Karamazov and in Crime and Punishment, the theme of confession, the theme of the weight of conscience, the weight of the sense of guilt, the way in which it tears a person up inside, the need to confess, and the power of coming clean is so central. And what Porfiry does is he understands the psychology of Raskolnikov, and he gives voice to this inner turmoil, a mind that's disquieted by its own guilty conscience, that's circling the flame, that's making mistakes, that's wrestling with this question of guilt and this question of sin and expiation in a way that it can't run away. It's trapped by its own sense of guilt, its own sense of fate and destiny in the direction of eventually confessing. Porfiry goes on to torment Raskolnikov more and more by talking in the abstract about what he would do with a hypothetical criminal, a hypothetical subject, a hypothetical suspicious character in this case. And he drops more and more details, of course, that align very, very well with the character and experiences of Raskolnikov. So skipping ahead in the book, let's suppose that this man, our special case, sir, this incognito, sir, will lie brilliantly in the cleverest way. This might seem to be a triumph, and he could enjoy the fruits of his wit. But all of a sudden, bang, he falls into a faint in the most interesting and scandalous place. Let's suppose it's an illness. Rooms can sometimes be very stuffy, but all the same, sir, nevertheless, it suggests an idea. He lied incomparably well, but he couldn't rely on his own nature. There it is, the perfidy, sir. Another time, distracted by the playfulness of his wit, he'll begin to make fun of the man who suspects him. He'll grow pale, as if on purpose, as if playing a game, but he grows pale in too natural a way, too much like it was the truth, and once again he's suggested an idea. Even if his trick succeeds at first, the investigator will think it over at night, if he's nobody's fool. And it's like that every step of the way, sir. Why? He'll begin to run ahead, butting in where he's not asked for. He'll begin talking incessantly about those things he really should keep silent about. He'll use sly allegories. He himself will come and begin asking questions. Why hasn't he still been arrested? And this can happen with the cleverest fellow, with a psychologist or a writer, sir. Human nature is a mirror, sir, the most transparent, sir. Look into it and admire, that's what, sir. Why have you turned so pale, Rodin Romanovich? Is it too stuffy in here? Shall I open a window? Please don't trouble yourself, cried Raskolnikov, and suddenly burst out laughing. Please don't trouble yourself. Porfiry paused opposite him, waited a bit, and then suddenly started laughing himself. Raskolnikov stood up from the sofa and abruptly cut short his spasmodic laughter. Porfiry Petrovitch, he said in a loud and distinct voice, even though he could barely stand on his trembling legs. At last I can see clearly that you positively suspect me of the murder of the old woman and her sister, Lizaveta. I must tell you that on my part, I'm sick and tired of this matter. If you find that you have the legal right to prosecute me, then do so. If you have the right to arrest me, then do so. But I won't allow you to laugh in my face and torment me. All of a sudden, his lips began trembling, his eyes shone with rage, and his voice, which had been restrained up to this point, began to rise. I won't allow it, sir, he cried suddenly, banging his fist on the table with all his might. Do you hear me, Porfiry Petrovitch? I won't allow it. Good Lord, not again, Porfiry Petrovitch cried, apparently in a real fright. Old boy, Rodin Romanovich, my dear fellow friend, what's the matter with you? I won't allow it, Raskolnikov started shouting again. Quiet down, old boy, they'll hear you and come in. Just think, what will we tell them? Porfiry Petrovitch whispered in horror, bringing his face right up to Raskolnikov's. I won't allow it, I won't, Raskolnikov repeated automatically, but also suddenly in a low whisper. Porfiry quickly turned around and ran to open a window. I'll let in some fresh air. You should drink some water, my dear boy. This is an attack, sir. The scene continues in this way for a few more pages, with Porfiry continuing to torment Raskolnikov, to drop hints, on the one hand, pretending like he's just talking to him like a jolly friend, like a detective talking about the procedures of detectiving and investigations, but also dropping these hints indicating that he knows that Raskolnikov is the murderer. Finally, skipping ahead a few pages. In a word, he said in a loud, insistent voice, standing up and pushing Porfiry away slightly as he stood. In a word, I want to know, do you acknowledge that I'm completely free of suspicion or not? Tell me, Porfiry Petrovitch, tell me once and for all, definitively and quickly, immediately. What a task! What a task you're setting, cried Porfiry, with an absolutely cheerful, crafty, and completely untroubled look. Why do you want to know? Why do you want to know so much, if no one's even started pestering you yet? You're acting like a little child, asking to play with fire. Why are you so worried? Why do you thrust yourself upon us? For what reasons? I repeat, cried Raskolnikov in a fury, I can't tolerate this any longer. What, sir, is it the uncertainty? Porfiry interrupted. Don't mock me. I won't have it. I tell you I won't have it. I can't stand it, and I won't. Do you hear me? Do you? He cried, banging his fist on the table again. Quiet down, quiet, they'll hear. I warn you in earnest, take care of yourself. I'm not joking, Porfiry said in a whisper. Raskolnikov, now perplexed, suddenly flew into a complete fury. But strange to say, once again, he obeyed the order to speak more quietly, even though he was suffering a strong paroxysm of rage. I won't allow you to torment me, he whispered suddenly, the same way he had before. Arrest me, search me, but be so good as to act in accordance with the proper forms. Don't play with me, sir. Don't you dare. At this point, Raskolnikov is ready to storm out. And Porfiry says, hold on a minute. There's someone I want you to see. I have a surprise for you. And we find out in the next pages that this is the surprise. The surprise is the man. The workman who saw Raskolnikov return to the scene of the crime and act very suspicious. And Porfiry is now ready to reveal his evidence and to spring this on Raskolnikov and see how he can handle it. But the trap doesn't work, because in this moment, someone bursts into the room. It's a different character. It's a man named Nikolai. And Nikolai is one of the painters who was also under suspicion because he was there around the time of the murder. And he cries, I am the murderer. He falls to his knees. I am guilty. I'm a sinner. I am the murderer. And this saves Raskolnikov. It saves him in the scene. And Raskolnikov leaves Porfiry's office feeling quite secure. But also, he has a new insight. And Dostoevsky paints with incredible clarity the nature of a unsettled conscience. What it's like to not feel at peace with yourself, to be harboring a secret, to be afraid of the penetrating gaze, to be afraid of being found out, the cost, the internal cost of going through life like that. And what remains in the final third or so of the book is for Raskolnikov to figure out what to do with that, what to do with that insight, what to do with that turmoil. He's safe, but he needs to figure out where to go from here. Is it possible to heal that wound? Is the question that sort of hangs over the remaining section of the book. Is it possible to recover from this? What would that look like? Thanks for watching.